Alright, hello everyone and welcome to a quick video I made, well maybe not so quick, video I'm making about item builds for Zyra, specifically in the mid lane, although this all transfers to Zyra in other lanes as well, including the jungle and support role. Okay, so basically what I wanted to do for a really long time is get some number crunching down on the relationship between Void Staff and Deathcap. And more generally, the relationship between Void Staff and any kind of ability power item. Now, there are a lot of calculators and formulas online that let you do these things, but I thought I'd do it specifically for Zyra to have a good idea of what stands. Alright, so you can check the video description if you want some, like, too long didn't watch, if you don't really care about the math and just want the hard results. You can also check the timestamps where I talk about it, or look in the video description. Okay? So let's start off by telling you how I made this formula and what it actually means. Okay, so here's a Microsoft Excel, and basically what I do is I say, okay, let's ignore this real quick. Let's ignore this as well. Sorry, there's a few remnants from earlier calculation I did. Alright, so let's just say that we're using a Zyra page with ability power, quints and glyphs and magic penetration marks. Okay, so what that means is that we get 6 magic penetration from runes, or 7.8 from runes, and 6 from precision at level 11. A lot of this is at level 11 because these calculations are about what to get as your second item. It also talks a little bit about the effects of your first item coupled with the second item. Okay, we'll get into that more later. And then so what we have is we have this, table of the enemy MR, which I start at 42, which is a laner with MR glyphs, and then go up every 10 basically, starting from 50, just to see, how this holds up against enemies of different MR, so we can kind of find, maybe, ideally the goal was to find an MR level where Deathcap is better than Void Staff and vice versa, okay? Because ideally, you would think that Void Staff would be better against heavy MR targets, and Deathcap would be better against lower MR targets. Because Void Staff would be getting a lot more use, when you're penetrating more, okay? And then, so here's our flat magic penetration. These are the remnants of my calculations for what happens if we have Sorcerer Boots and Haunting Guys, and a Deathcap, okay? So over here, we got 6 from precision, 7.8 from the runes, and 30 from Sorcs and Haunting Guys. Unfortunately, and also right here, notice you'd normally think that the effective MR would be enemy magic resistance minus the magic penetration, but it can't go lower than 0, barring anything like an Abyssal Scepter or a Wit's End. Okay, so this is 0, and then let's quickly go over the formula for magic damage reduction, okay? So the formula for magic damage reduction is your MR, or in this case your effective MR, divided by 100 plus your MR, okay? So if you effectively have 0 MR, obviously 0 magic penetration, 6.2 is 6%, and if you have 136 effective, then it's 58% less damage that you take, okay? And then this is really, really small stuff. Again, a remnant. It still impacts, but it's mostly a remnant of an old thing I did that has, their armor and my armor pen. This is also from when I was learning hybrid pen. It not really going to make a difference though, because we're level 11. We're gonna, in this formula, this is a good time to do it. What is the formula for me calculating my burst damage as Zyra? Okay, this is a level 11, so I'm assuming I have level 3 Q, level 5 E for support, or level 5 Q and level 3 E for most mid laners at that point. Honestly, it doesn't really matter because I'm 90% sure that the extra base damage you get from Q and E is the same, and in this formula this is burst, so you're only using 1 of each, so it doesn't actually matter. You can either be 5Q, 3E, it really doesn't matter. The base damages are going to help each other the same amount, okay? And then what we're assuming you're doing is you have an E, a Q, you're summoning 2 plants, you're using your ultimate, and you're giving 1 auto attack because you want to make sure your plants are attacking your target. We're also assuming that each plant attacks twice, okay, which is pretty standard for a burst combo, alright? Okay, so what that has, and then let's look at what we're taking into account. So this is always base damage plus ability scaling times ability power times the magic damage reduction. And this, and then we have that a whole bunch. We're also dealing this last term right here is Thunderlord's Decree, which I'm assuming you have. And we're not in this, and all these things is just the ability scaling of all your abilities multiplied by the damage reduction, or 1 minus the damage reduction technically, to find out how much damage you actually do. Okay, so I think that's that. Lastly, you know, here's the ability power formula. So here we have deathcap, so it's 1.35 because it gives 35% extra times however much ability power you have. All right. So let's get to the table of results. All right. So over here we have a table that shows if you have 2 items, how much damage are you going to do in a burst combo against a target with this amount of MR. I also write down the gold of how much it would cost to have those 2 items, not counting like anything else, just these 2 items, okay? And then what do we have here? So in bold, the bold corresponds to whether deathcap or void staff is better. So here if we get Morello's first item, then deathcap is better until they have 170 MR, and then void staff's better. Here, if we rush sorcerer's boots and haunting guys, deathcap is better until they have 100 MR, and then void staff is better. So you get the idea with this, all of what's in bold. And finally, what's in green is that for any given MR, what is the optimal amount of damage? And here you can see that up until 100 MR, the optimal thing is to get sorc boots and deathcap. Anyway, this table is not actually that useful, okay? Because the problem with this table is that deathcap costs 1,300 more gold, not quite 1,300, very close. Let me do my math right. Let's see, 65 over 5350, so that's 1150 more gold. Yeah. 1,150 more gold for deathcap, all right? So what I decided to do instead is make this second table with exact same information, except instead of the raw damage numbers over here, let's take the damage numbers and divide it by how much gold it costs. Okay, so up here we found out that if we built deathcap after morellos, actually let's use let's look at this one, okay? If we built deathcap over deathcap after Frost Queen's Claim, we'd do more damage than if we built void staff after Frost Queen's Claim, okay? But it's not that much. It's only 100 damage extra. But if we go down here to the same place, we see that if we get deathcap after void staff, we're actually getting a lot less damage for the gold that we're spending. So instead, it'd be better, and which is why it's in bold down here, to get void staff after Frost Queen's Claim, and purely damage numbers for everything we have in this table. Okay, so here's interesting, is that if we look at the cost, notice that every single row has bold next to void staff. So if you're looking at only your second item, void staff is always better. Void staff is always better in terms of pure gold and how much you're getting out of that gold for second item. So what this really means is that for the entire last year or so, it became less prevalent. It was more in season 4 when people were, you know, a very standard build of Athenes into deathcap into void staff, or maybe Morellonomicon into deathcap into void staff. That was always suboptimal. It's not optimal to rush a deathcap, okay? In terms of pure damage, no matter how much MR they have, it's not worth it. Okay, so what else does this mean? Here, I should actually read my notes that I made. So you can see here that green corresponds to the most damage you're going to get with what item. So if you're only looking at 2 items, where one of them includes void staff and deathcap, which is fine because if you got your second item, it would just be void staff is 80 ability power. So if you got your second item, it could either be Rylai's, which is 100 ability power, but it doesn't have the penetration, or it could be maybe What else is a very common second item? Rylai's or sorcerer boots and haunting guys. Basically, we don't have to worry about that because you want to get probably one of these items for your second. And if you got something else, it would probably be less cost efficient than void staff because it'd be less ability power with no penetration. So this is mostly the only thing we need to worry about. So what this means is basically sorcerer boots and haunting guys is better unless they have an insane amount of MR. And then you should rush Frost Queen's Claim because it's really gold efficient. We have this small little, what seems to be an outlier, and basically what this corresponds to is the fact that your flat magic penetration can't make their effective magic penetration go below 0. Or their effective magic resist go below 0. So in right here, up here, when we built Sorc Boots, Haunting Guys, and Void Staff when they had 42 magic resistance, basically that would have put it in the negative. So we're basically effectively wasting our Sorcerer Boots and stuff like that. So, you know, if they have no MR, Frost Queen's Claim is more gold efficient. And in fact, Frost Queen's Claim, look at this, 0.26, 0.24, 0.263. Frost Queen's Claim is the most gold efficient item you can rush in the game right now. Pure damage, for as far as pure ability power is concerned. Okay, so obviously we showed here that if they have some MR but not very much, then Sorcerer Boots and Haunting Guys is better. That's flat penetration, not exactly the point I'm trying to make. Although it does mean that the traditional Zyra build of just rushing penetration is the way to go, as far as numbers go. That being said, you know, if you want to rush a Rylai's Crystal Scepter for the utility, go for it. If you want to rush a Frost Queen's Claim for the utility, go for it. But if you're purely speaking about damage numbers, you're gonna want to rush double penetration. You're gonna want to get their MR as close to 0 as possible. Okay. So again, what this means is that if you're purely building for burst damage and assuming that you want these items, which is pretty standard, but you know, there are some variations, then what you do is you rush Haunting Guys into Sorc Boots, into Void Staff, get all that penetration we have in the table right here. And then immediately after that, you're going to get Deathcap, because that's going to give you the most ability power, and Deathcap as a third item is very good. Then you're going to get Rylai's, because 100 ability power, the utility is nice. Liandries, 80 ability power, and not to mention all the current health damage that it does. And lastly, you would end with morellos, because as far as pure damage goes in one burst combo, the CDR is not a part of this formula, remember. Okay, so what this means for me personally as a mid lane Zyra player is I will probably start running my full penetration page. The reason for doing this is, notice that again, for damage, you're getting Haunting really early, but you're not getting Liandries till really late. Haunting Guys is 1600 gold, which is a lot to spend. So what I will probably do instead is get that 15 magic penetration from my full magic penetration page, which gives about 20 magic penetration, and it gives about 15 magic penetration more than my standard page. Okay, so then I'll probably rush double dorans for my mana sustain. I'll rush Sorcerer Boots for that penetration to get them really close to 0 effective MR. And then, depending on the game, whether Rylai's or Frost Queen's Claim is better, I'll get one or the other. And then I'll get Void Staff to, again, break down all of their MR. Also, it will be really effective against anybody who has any magic resistance item as well. And then get Deathcap for the maximum burst, probably have some kind of situational item. I might end up getting a morellos if I really need it, if I need the CDR. Could get Rod of Ages here. It's really gold efficient even when you buy it, so it's not terrible to buy late. You could get your Liandries here, you could get a Zanya's, you could get an Abyssal Scepter. You know, it just depends on what you need for the game that you're in. Then lastly, I'll probably finish off with Liandries when people are late game, when there's health everywhere. You could maybe push it up a little bit, depending on how the game is going. So that's basically it for all this number crunching, for this math for Zyra. So the short answer, again, just to recap, is that Void Staff is really good. And you almost are always going to want Void Staff as a Zyra player before Rabadon's Deathcap. Rabadon's Deathcap gives you a whole lot of damage, but unfortunately it's really expensive, so it's not actually as gold efficient as an early Void Staff. And that's pretty much it. Sorry that it's kind of, I kind of made this video on the fly, so I'm a little disorganized and a little flustered. But hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned some stuff. I'm going to try to make more Zyra videos in the future. And good luck on the Rift.